I just started playing the Zelda series of video games after giving Ocarina of Time a try. Playing Ocarina gave me a lot of respect for the series itself, its developers, and for the legacy that the game has on 3D action RPGs. Majora's Mask is so far my favorite of the series for all the reasons I mentioned in my video on it. I was super excited to get into Wind Waker because of some of the gameplay and conversations I read about it online and heard from friends. It looked like it had a new art style, a grand open world, and an optimism that felt familiar to Ocarina of Time. I was excited to dig into this new Zelda world and see what Nintendo had cooked up this time. What were the dungeons going to be like? Will there be a shakeup in the world structure? Will it follow a traditional hero's tale like Ocarina of Time did, or mix it up like Majora's Mask and charter new grounds? There was only one way to find out. Wind Waker was released in 2002 for the GameCube. It follows the story of Link, the hero of the series, who has to rescue his sister and then the world from the evils of a returned Ganondorf. It was the first Zelda game on the GameCube, so it had a lot to own up to. Zelda is one of Nintendo's biggest IPs, so it has to perform well, especially in the newest system. Wind Waker immediately feels different. It has a unique art style, which is a stark departure from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. It's much more cartoony with rounded edges and not a right angle in sight. The character models have massive heads and small bodies compared to the more proportional models of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. It has much more lighting and a vastness that only something like Hyrule Field can match. Wind Waker also has a much more childish character. The game shies away from any deep or explicit depiction of adult content, like the blood in the bottom of the well dungeon for Ocarina of Time, or the general theming and creepy aura of Majora's Mask. Wind Waker instead gives us a more Dora the Explorer vibe. The world is vast and open. Most of the enemies are not designed to disturb your senses, rather just kinda give you a rush. Compare to the emaciated redeads of Ocarina of Time and their equivalents here. The Ocarina of Time ones give off a creepy and mysterious aura, whereas the Wind Waker ones look like a monster from a children's book. That's not a criticism. I enjoy the art style and theming of Wind Waker. I feel it's very deliberate. Majora's Mask had its own unique theme and I very much loved it. I want this review to serve not only as a perspective review of me playing the game, but also how it stacks up with the previous entries. I want to discuss my thoughts on the story and the characters, the dungeons and their bosses, the combat, and finally the open world. Let me first start with the story. Wind Waker, as the name implies, is a title given to the main character Link. The Wind Waker is the chosen one who will defeat Ganondorf, an evil that has returned. Returned from where, you may ask my theoretical viewer? Well, from the past, specifically from the days of Ocarina of Time. The events of Ocarina of Time are recalled in the opening sequence of the game, and serve as a brief recap alongside a mythology for the world. With this opening, Wind Waker ties itself to Ocarina of Time, and its story carries on from there, specifically from the adult timeline of Ocarina of Time. It mentions Ganondorf and the Hero of Time. The people in Wind Waker, specifically Outset Island, even have a ceremony that commemorates the Hero of Time. The ceremony involves dressing a young boy in a green tunic when they turn the age that the Hero of Time was when he saved the world. It's here where Link is shown on this very birthday. He's called to wear the green tunic and is reluctant at first, but eventually does it. No sooner than he has it on, a young lady being carried by a bird and chased by a pirate ship crash lands in the forest above their island. Link, a reluctant laid-back boy, suddenly springs to action to save her. It's at this point that the story plays with themes of destiny and responsibility. Link in the previous two games has been very ambitious and headstrong, diving headfirst into danger and asking questions later. The reluctance of Link is very well displayed here in Wind Waker. He doesn't exactly want what's coming his way, but destiny itself has bestowed it upon Link. Or has Link bestowed it upon himself through his actions? Who is driving whom here? Link is reluctant at first, but as soon as action calls, he jumps headfirst into it. The wearing of the green tunic is also symbolic of Link growing up into adulthood. Link in Ocarina of Time received no such privilege, as he was thrusted into a role. He had no trials or tribulations to face, not like the ones he faces in Wind Waker. He was given the Master Sword and therefore the duty it holds. This Link is different. As we go through the story, you'll see that he's tested much more than his counterpart. He's not immediately bestowed the mantle of the Chosen One, rather he earns it. Which begs the question, is he a chosen one, or simply the one that stepped up to the mantle? Let's return to the story. The girl who landed in the forests of the island is Tetra, who Link promptly rescues. During the mission, his sister also gets taken by the same bird, and Link learns that blonde girls with pointy ears all over are being abducted and taken to the Forsaken Fortress. Tetra, reluctant at first, agrees to take Link to the Forsaken Fortress, where he can save his sister as thanks for saving her. Some slapstick comedy plays here, with Link being launched into the Forsaken Fortress and landing like a Looney Tunes character. This is also a difference with storytelling that the previous two games didn't really have. There were comedic moments, such as Inga's reaction to you jumping over the farm with Epona, or the Gorons in general, but Wind Waker adds this new element. It also adds facial expressions, which help flesh out the characters with personality. My favorite expression is when Link receives the green tunic and does a little dance revealing the item, but his face is one of nervousness, reinforcing his reluctance. Link makes it to the top of the fortress, and is greeted by the same bird that took his sister. It launches him out of the tower, and he ends up floating in the ocean. A talking red boat called the King of Lions finds him and rescues him, taking him to the nearby Windfall Island. Here is where you see Ganondorf doting over his domain, grinning maniacally to himself for the events that have just played out. The return of Ganondorf here pretty much lays out the general plot structure of Wind Waker. He's the one in control of the giant abducting bird, and the description given by the reader of blonde girls with pointy ears sounds remarkably similar to Zelda. So at this point, you're sure of one thing. Either Akril, Link's sister, or Tetra, the pirate girl, is Zelda. Back at Windfall Island, Link is desperately in need for a sail because the only way the ship is going to move is if he gets one. He makes a deal with a local merchant and gets a sail. The King of Red Lions explains that he must collect the 3 goddess pearls if he hopes to defeat Ganon. So it's off to Dragon Roost Island for the Fire Pearl, where he must save Valu, the Sky Spirit, and help the Chief Elder's son assume the mantle his tribe needs him to. Komali is much like Link and isn't at the same time. Let's start with how he isn't. He's royalty for his island and he's timid and shy. He's content staying in his own room and reading books. Compare this to Link's relaxed and open appearance of when you first see him. He's high in the sky in the open sun. But in the ways he's similar to Link is that he must assume the mantle of adulthood and responsibility. Or in other words, Komali needs to wear his green tunic as well. Komali, like Link, lost his grandmother. Where Link leaves his grandmother willingly, Komali loses her to death. Link helps him with the assistance of Medley, who's the one that first points all this out to Link. Medley is an apprentice attendant of Valu. She's the middlewoman between the Rito and Valu after the previous one passed away, who was Komali's grandmother. Medley is essentially Komali's Akril, where in one place you're saving your sister, she's saving her figurative brother. She needs help getting up to Valu though to understand what's wrong. Although with the amount of times we bash her head into this wall, I'm not so sure she can understand anything anymore. I hope you're sensing a theme here with young men needing to grow up and assume responsibility, with the presence of female characters helping them do just that. For Link, it's Akril or Tetra, and for Komali, it seems like it's Medley. It also plays deeper into the theming of destiny. For everything Komali is, he seems destined to assume the mantle of chief, yet he doesn't want to until Link arrives. If destiny is such a strong component, then would Komali ever live up to that responsibility? Compare that to Link. Is it really his destiny to save the world? Or is it that he stepped up to the mantle of saving it? After freeing Valu, you head to the Forest Haven and deal with another threat, and get the Green Pearl. You save a Korok so the Deku Tree can perform a ritual to plant new trees. This ritual is very indicative of a common theme in the story of Wind Waker. One of letting go of the past and embracing the future. Link has to leave his childhood life behind, and the people behind, specifically his old grandmother. Think about it, she's from a bygone era, a relic of the past. She's of the old world. For Komali, he's in a depressive state because of the passing of his grandmother. He's haunted by the past and is looking for a way back. The Deku Tree shows us that the passage of time is natural. He will die, but will be reborn in many different ways. From one, you get many. The Koroks are literally planting seeds for the future. Even the vast ocean that covers the world is pointing towards this. Birth or new life. This point will become more important towards the climax of the game. Link now needs the final pearl. We head east to Great Fish Isle, but find it destroyed. A dark and stormy night falls on the land that seemingly doesn't have any plans to go away. Time feels stuck. You learn that there are some pirates in Windfall Island and head there to learn more. The great fish that lived here held the final pearl. Ganondorf attacked the island hoping to fish it out, but Jabun, the great fish, managed to escape to Outside Island, Link's home. At Windfall, Tetra and crew are threatening the bomb shop owner to hand over his merchandise. Link, being very sneaky, overhears this conversation and decides to steal from the pirates. Tetra seems to know of his presence and graciously allows him to steal. It seems like Tetra knows something. She gives him until the morning to get the pearl, which gives us the impression that she knows of Ganondorf and that she might be Zelda. After recovering the final pearl, Link places them around the world to reveal a huge Triforce and the Tower of the Gods. Link's final challenge awaits. Complete the trial he does, and is sent to an underwater castle that seems to be in stasis. It's actually Hyrule Castle from Ocarina of Time. It's so cool to see the inside finally. I always wondered how the castle looked from the inside ever since Ocarina of Time, and this didn't disappoint. It has some updates such as the statue of the Hero of Time, and it seems they moved the location of the Master Sword from the Temple of Time to the basement here, probably for better keeping. There's also all these paintings on the wall, and would you look at who is in them? This all but confirms Tetra is Zelda, right? There's also the fact that most of the enemies here are frozen in time too. It seems an invasion force was sent here and something stopped them by literally stopping them. Link heads down to the basement to retrieve the Master Sword. I've gotta say, this room was really well designed and such a callback to Ocarina of Time with the murals on the wall depicting each and every stage from that game. Link pulls the Master Sword out and time suddenly starts moving again for the castle. The enemies start moving around and Link has to slay them one by one. This is another great portrayal of destiny here with the Master Sword. Is Link the chosen one who was destined to wield the Master Sword? Or is he the one who ended up here and took it? The Master Sword seems to have lost all of its power as mentioned by the King of Red Lions. So there's a good argument that the sword didn't have the power to prevent someone who wasn't worthy from wielding it. There's also really no evidence so far that the pearls can only be retrieved by a chosen one. Jabun and the King of Red Lions even have a conversation about if they're sure that Link is really the chosen one. So this scene really has me thinking about destiny, and whether it led Link here or if Link's own ambition and actions did. He certainly is dressed up as the Hero of Time, but he doesn't possess his personality as we see from the beginning of the game. If anything, he possesses the courage, and it seems like that's all you really need to become a hero. When Link returns to the overworld, he has one thing to do. Save his sister. He heads back to the Forsaken Fortress and faces off against the bird that abducted them. Tetra arrives and offers to save the girls while Link gets busy. He defeats the bird but then heads for Ganon. Ganon chronicles the past to Link, explaining his ambition and plan for world domination, a world he was denied before but now intends on capturing. Link is soon joined by Tetra and they both face off against Ganon. With the Master Sword in hand, they feel they have a shot at it, but wait, there's a problem. The Master Sword has lost all its Ganon slaying abilities. Tetra is captured and finally revealed to be Zelda. All hope seems lost until Komali and a fellow Rito come to their rescue. Valu is here too and burns the place to cinders. They bring them to the Temple of Gods where they're taken to Hyrule Castle. King Hyrule finally reveals himself here and informs Tetra of her true identity. A little tidbit here. Throughout the game, Tetra seemed like she knew about the state of the world and her own spot in it. It's a scene where Link steals the bomb in Windfall. She kinda just lets him and seems to know what he's going to do, but over here, she seems rather surprised. I don't know, I can't really square this in my mind. Anyways, King Hyrule also tells Link that he has been communicating to him through the ship and pleads with him to recharge the Master Sword. Link of course agrees to this. He needs to do this by taking the Master Sword to the Wind and Earth Temple, but not before we find the appropriate stages for them, and then collect the Triforce shards to reforge the Triforce and face Ganon. The first temple is the Earth Temple, and Link needs the new Earth Sage. He's given a clue in the form of an instrument. It's the very same instrument that Medli holds. Link brings the news to Medli, and she has an outer body experience with the former sage and realizes what her duty is. It's here where Medli realizes her destiny and role to play. It's here where she lets the past go and allows the future to unfold. You take Medli to the Earth Temple, and she helps you recharge the Master Sword. For the Wind Temple, Link needs to find Makar, the Korok he saved in the Forest Haven, who's the Wind Sage. A similar tale of sages passing on their roles to the next generation plays, and we take Makar to the Wind Temple, where he helps us complete the Master Sword recharge. Finally, all Link needs are the 8 Triforce shards, and with that, he heads to Ganon. After braving Ganon's tower, Link is standing in front of him. He goes on about the futility of the world and how it's hopeless before his might. He transforms into a giant puppet-like monster and begins the battle with Link. Link defeats this puppet and heads up to finally face Ganon himself. It's here where Ganon reveals his honest thoughts and feelings about the world. He feels he's denied the blessings that all of Hyrule received, that he was wronged by the gods. He talks about his home in the deserts of Hyrule, where the nights are exceedingly cold and the days are scorching hot. If the gods truly bless the world, then why does his home suffer? Why is he not met with the same blessings? He's decided that if the gods would allow him to suffer, then he'll conquer the world they've built. A retribution. I like this aspect of Ganon. In my previous videos, I've mentioned how Ganon is a force of nature. He has no intentions, just an ambition to conquer and subjugate. In Wind Waker, he's given a reason. While not outright stated in this way, I think it's told between the lines. Why would he mention the harsh reality of his homeland and then the gods in the same breath? He directly mentions how he coveted that wind that blessed Hyrule. Why would he covet something like that? Ganon also talks about fate, as if fate brought them all here. But did it? Much like Link, Ganon is motivated by ambition. He constantly puts plans into motion that directly lead Link to him. He seems to have accepted that he'll conquer and subjugate the world, and that's his fate. Yet he's thwarted by Link every time. Is it Link's fate to stop him, or is it Ganon's fate to be destroyed? He seems hellbent on the fact that he'll achieve his goals, and that it's his fate. But that doesn't seem to be playing out well in his favor. With the final blow, Ganon is defeated and the evil stalled. The ocean starts flooding Hyrule as it's time to become part of history. King Hyrule says goodbye to Link in his own way, by accepting that he's a product of a bygone era and that he must let go, that the world is for the next generation. After the end credits, you see Link head out with Tetra to the ocean. Wind Waker had a great story. It has a lot of the same story beats as Ocarina of Time, like the hero's journey, being called to greatness by a princess, repairing a broken world, and learning to embrace what's in front of you. In both games, Link charges headfirst into danger and comes out victorious. The reason I mention Ocarina of Time so much is because this game seems to directly be inspired by it in more ways than one. The story is a direct sequel to that story, the characters are much the same, and we even visit Castle Hyrule, where we meet Princess Zelda again. Albeit in Wind Waker, in a different way because you don't really meet Princess Zelda here. Princess Zelda is revealed here to be Tetra, who you meet earlier on in the game. Wind Waker Link has a lot of character. His facial expressions keep you entertained even while shimmying across a slope or climbing a rope. In the final fight against Ganon, you can even see his sword hand shaking as he nervously approaches Ganon. But approach he does. He exemplifies that courage isn't fearlessness, but rather the ability to face fear. His care for his sister and his care for Tetra, his commitment to save them, also exemplifies this. It begs the same question. Is he the chosen one, or is he the one who took responsibility? That it wasn't destiny shaping his hand, that he wasn't some special creature that was born to do this, that heroes aren't so different from you or I, only in their ability to show courage and face fear. Link in Ocarina of Time was summoned by the Great Deku Tree and given a role and part to play. Wind Waker Link took on his own role and forged his own path. He's a self-made hero. Tetra was a great character whenever she was on screen. She exuded a lot of confidence and wit in her approach to the world. She was much like Ocarina of Time Zelda in guiding Link and being the catalyst for his greatness, while playing important background roles herself. When she became Zelda, I was very disappointed with the lack of presence in the game. She kinda just sits there the whole time, waiting to be kidnapped. Ocarina of Time Zelda was masquerading as Sheik and being one step behind you the whole way. Link was the sun and she was the moon. Tetra could handle herself, so I disliked how they Rapunzeled her in Castle Hyrule. But from a story perspective, her help in the final fight was great. You worked together to take Ganon down. Wind Waker Ganon was a treat. I love how they balanced his force of nature like evil, but still managed to give him human motivations. Or they at least allude to it in a way that it seems like he was destined for it. He seems a prisoner of fate here, and has this alarming confidence that of course he'll be successful. After all, he's the great Ganondorf, born to the Gerudo tribe to rule them, wielder of the Triforce of Power. How could he ever be defeated? This pride in himself and assurance of his greatness is what really destroys him. The concept of fate is his downfall. His self-assured belief that it's his destiny. Towards the end, when King Hyrule steals the wish from Ganondorf, he drops all inklings of destiny as he now faces ruin. When he removes the fate of destiny from his mind, that's when he's at his most dangerous. It's such a great storytelling tool that his fate and destiny mindset is his ultimate downfall, and scarily enough, that if he ever drops it, he could truly do what he sets out for. King Hyrule, or the Red Lion, was a disappointing character. He's a one-note old man who regrets his past. He has no great arc and pulls a rug pull at the end by suddenly showing up on the battlefield to steal Ganon's wish. He's kinda like Navi in Ocarina of Time, where he's responsible for telling the player where to go and what to do, so he suffers from that role. I feel the writers couldn't make him too complex or esoteric and fear that the player would be confused and lack direction. He kinda just sits there and then shows up when we need him to. The Rito tribesmen were very cool. They're the descendants of the Zora and now have taken to flying instead of swimming. The return of the Gorons as these masked salesmen was a great addition, as they're still kicking around somewhere. Probably near this Fire Mountain, which I think is Death Mountain from Ocarina of Time. The Koroks were the best addition. I mean, look at them. Do I need to say anything? Look at Chubby. The folks at Windfall are great. They have routines they do every day and have a lot of personality. My favorites are the Picto salesman and this lady who's in love with herself. The guy mailing the love note is fun too, and Elvis over here. Oh, look at him. But the best character, the most original, the greatest presence has to go to... Beetle. I now present my evidence.
Oh, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Let's talk about the dungeons and combat. Wind Waker pretty much keeps the same combat system from Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, but makes them more fluid and adds fancier combos. You still spam one button to attack. You can hold the analog stick to direct a vertical or horizontal slash. If you can do a full circle and hit the attack button at the same time, you get a 360 slash. You can also do a charge 360 by holding down the attack button. Later on, after completing a gathering quest, you get a pretty cool hurricane spin that consumes mana. Oh yeah, mana. You have a green bar beneath your health which dictates your magic meter. There are multiple tools for magic in this game. Some can be used in combat such as the ice and fire arrows, and later on the light arrow, but it's also used to fuel your airborne movement with the Deku Leaf. There are a lot of tools here that I mentioned, so let me go through all of them. You have a grappling hook that can be used as an item snatcher from enemies. There's the trusty boomerang, which can now target 5 things at once. This becomes useful for mobs, bosses with multiple hitboxes, and puzzles. You also have bombs like in the other games, which function similarly. Set up a cheeky bomb to clear a mob, or clear your path, you get it. Another tool, and one of my favorites in Ocarina of Time, was the hammer. You get this around the midpoint of the game, and its only real use is puzzle solving. It does help with CC, but it's too slow to really swing around without getting interrupted. I like the previous version better because you could actually use that in combat with a better flow. A new tool in this game alongside the grappling hook is the Deku Leaf. This allows you to float in the air and cover distances that you normally couldn't jump across. It's actually a really useful tool to traverse some of the larger spaces in the game. It also lets you platform in ways that the previous 2 entries did not. Its usefulness in combat is to stun enemies or do some pushback. With skull enemies specifically, it can blow away the fire they have. In puzzles, you use it to play golf on this little island here and to blow these trolleys across some vines. The hookshot also makes a return in this game, but rather late. I really like the hookshot as a traversal tool, but also it's the only item in the game that has an aiming mode. Well, it and the boomerang now. The bow doesn't have one yet, and it really trips me out because it's so hard to aim the damn thing. Well, not so hard, but really annoying. There's also an angle to the shots now, where the arrows go slightly towards the direction when they're shot and also drop now with distance. I don't know if Majora's Mask or Ocarina of Time had this as well, but I really felt it here. Finally, an item you get after a long trading sequence is the magic armor. I got this about 75% of the way through and never ended up using it as I never struggled with anything enough. It allows you to tank hits by removing your currency instead of your health. I imagine it would be really useful during the Savage Labyrinth combat challenge if you're struggling. Well, now that we mentioned the Savage Labyrinth, let's talk about the combat a bit deeper. I found the combat to be very floaty. Link turns and moves in very wide angles. Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask had Link moving almost instantaneously to reposition himself. But over here it feels like he's slower. His dash ability by spamming the A button also seems to have seen a nerf. In Majora's Mask and Ocarina, it was noticeably faster and I single-handedly used it to traverse around the map when it didn't have Epona. Over here it seems to be slower. This makes it a bit difficult to create space between you and the enemies, especially when not locked in and for mobs of enemies in smaller areas. Wind Waker seems to like throwing mobs of enemies at you. The little bat-like creatures are the worst because they keep coming and coming and I never found out why they just keep spawning. Did it have something to do with the light? A nest nearby? I don't know. The moblin enemies are very funny looking. I was very impressed with their models and the weapons. They were probably my least favorite to fight though because they continuously block your attacks. It reminded me of Ocarina of Time where it felt like the game was a turn-based experience because of how many times the enemies just sat there. You have returning enemies like the Redettes here who work the same. New ghost enemies that need light shown on them to reveal them and be able to attack them. These type of enemies always end up being one note and aren't as fun to fight the next time around because of the singular gimmick they have. Each time I see them it's me looking for a light source and then the fight is over. My absolute favorite foes were the Dark Nut Knight enemies. These massive hulking brutes always had me grinning to fight them. They wear large suits of metal armor that repels any attack you do on them. I'm sure there's many ways to get around them, but my preferred way to deal with them was to counterattack them. Wind Waker introduces a new counterattack mechanic that allows you to swerve around an enemy and hit them for a strong shot, granted you get the timing right. The window is very generous, but it's balanced by not having iframes while you're in motion for the attack. The Dark Nut enemies are very fun to parry. Swerve around the left or right, or my personal favorite, from up above them. They have ropes in the back of their armor that's holding it all in place. You can slash this and remove the armor. You can also remove their helms and expose them completely. This allows you to get multiple hits on them without repels. You can even drop their weapons and and you'd think they'd be helpless, but no. A bit of close quarters martial arts and they become even more deadly because of the speed. I don't even think you can counter these attacks. They're very fun when they're packed in groups. My favorite encounter with them was in the final level of the Savage Labyrinth. The Savage Labyrinth is a 50-floor level where you clear enemies in each floor. The difficulty gets higher and higher as you go deeper. The final floor has about 4 of these guys, mixed in with electricity on the walls to prevent too much spacing. It's a real challenge of your ability to space them out, make them vulnerable, and balance your surroundings. With there also being 4 of them, you have to time the counters and position yourself so that during your counter, you don't get clipped by any of the other 3. You can even hit the other ones during the counter to get multiple attacks in. It's a real rush when you get a groove going, and the Dark Nuts for this reason are my favorite mob to fight in the game. We also need to talk about the dungeons. My main criticism is that they have no staying power. They're cool, they look very aesthetic, but they didn't really live in my mind after the fact. In Ocarina, the Shadow Temple stayed with me because of the great atmosphere. The Water Temple, as much as I hate it, still sits with me because it has a very clear design and theming. In Majora's Mask, the world itself really stays in your mind. When I think of Majora's Mask, I see Clocktown, I see the swamp, the mountains, Zora Hall. When I think of Wind Waker, none of the dungeons come to mind. They're very forgettable. Why? I think I know the reason. They don't do anything new. The puzzles are the ones we've seen before. How many times have we shot an eye for the puzzle, moved a block from here to there, shine a light in an object to reveal it? Don't get me wrong, there are cool puzzles to do like the light ones in the Earth Temple and the iron boots in the Wind Temple. The Deku Leaf puzzles are cool the first time, but pretty one note afterwards. The grappling hook is nice and all, but it doesn't really add much and the rigidness of it really sucks the fun out. There are new elements like these statues you control, but they also amount to just placing them in one spot like you would push a box. The only dungeon I really liked was the very first one, Forsaken Fortress, and that's because of the high stealth element throughout it. When I first played it, I was grinning ear to ear because I thought they added stealth into the formula. But beyond the Forsaken Fortress, there's nothing that requires it. You never hide in barrels again. The crawl Link can do isn't really used anywhere. It's just really disappointing to see. Another highlight was using Medley in the Earth Temple. There are moments where you have to carefully position her so she can reflect light off her instrument that you can then reflect to solve a puzzle. But beyond that, we've seen these puzzles in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. They feel familiar. Add to the fact that we use many of the same tools, fight many of the same enemies, and you kind of autopilot through them. Even the bosses suffer from the same problem, sans a couple. Dragon Roost has a cool boss that utilizes the new tool we have. It also has environmental mechanics with the dragon tail and repositioning with the grappling hook. This boss is the first one we fight in the game, so I was very happy to see it here. It serves as a challenge and it's not something we've seen anywhere. The final fight with Ganon is a highlight and had a great display of storytelling and character building through gameplay. Jalhala is another fun one because of the comedic element for me of throwing him against the spikes, then killing the smaller guys. It kinda reminds me of King Boo. Kale Demos is just an inferior version of Baronade. Godan is a reskin of Bongo Bongo. Big Bird here is Volvagia, but worse. Volvagia had a whack-a-mole feel to it that made it fun to track him. This guy just offers himself up to you. Mulgera is if you take Morpha from Ocarina of Time and the twin centipedes from Majora's Mask and mix their boss elements together. It makes for a new boss, sure, but not a very unique one. Puppet Ganon is an interesting one because of how you have to target the blue crystal. I would have liked this one much more if the analog stick aiming was better. It's really annoying to target it while he flails around. The spider puppet is the best though because of the clever use of the water reflection. I feel like Wind Waker has 2 sides to it. The open world exploration that makes you feel like you're in an adventure, and the uninspiring dungeons and bosses. The story packs a mean punch though and carries the show. Let's talk about the open world and side quests. I believe Wind Waker's main draw is its open world, which consists of a vast ocean populated with islands. In many ways, it feels like a One Piece arc. Go from island to island solving problems and puzzles, collect your reward, and on to the next one. There are 49 boxes in total that you can fill in via the manfish at each square. 49 boxes means 49 fishes, so you really need a bait to lure him out. To get that bait, you need to talk to Beetle, who circles specific islands with his beetle boat, selling his beetle bait, running his beetle business. Once you have this bait, you can lure out the manfish and he'll give you some sort of tip about the world. Like, hey, the power to melt ice is about 3 islands northwest of here. Or, come back here during the nighttime. Or, that island over there has the Triumph Forks. This style of hinting is for me the gold standard. You have some investment by spending the money on bait, you have the option of talking to the manfish, and you have the hint be cryptic, but not so much that it doesn't help at all. It would be even better if we could map the area without talking to a manfish to have a complete blind playthrough of the game. I personally don't mind the combination of the two, but I can imagine some players might. Individually, the islands are more than lacking, let's say. but they make up for the lack of content at each island by making a lot of them. This is probably a hardware restriction on the GameCube. I understand that the reason you don't get a faster sale is because the GameCube can only render a certain amount at a time, so slowing you down is the best way to render things without them seeming out of whack. For the most part, the game does an excellent job incorporating exploration for main quests and exploration for side quests. One of the ways it does this is by requiring you to pay a lot of money through rupees to decipher the locations of the Triforce. I think it's $3.98 a pop, and for 8 charts you need deciphered, that comes out to roughly $3,200. This number on a pure main story mode is very rough. The game throws plenty of rupees at you, but between buying bait and other things you may want, specifically at the special beetle shop where he sells a bottle, a heart, and a chart for more than 500, it becomes pretty difficult. The natural explorer will be happy to know that there's plenty of rupees to go around if you just look for them. At times, they'll be in jars. Most of mine came from collecting the treasure chest. There's also hearts that are spread around the map. The hearts are very important. They increase the amount of life you have. You get plenty of them from the main storyline of quests, but there's a good chunk that come from exploration. They're typically found during the end of a puzzle, fighting some goblins on these tower structures, or in chests near certain islands. Another great reward for the player. I was pretty disappointed that Savage Labyrinth had a heart as a reward for clearing all 50 floors, but I guess the content itself was the reward, the friends we made along the way type of stuff. Another crucial reward, and in many ways mandatory, are the fairies. There are 8 total, 7 normal ones and 1 Queen Mother Fairy. The upgrades you receive from them range from increasing your wallet to 5k rupees, increasing your bow and bomb capacity to 99 each, increasing your magic meter by double, and finally giving you the ability to use fire and ice arrows. It's this clever diaspora of items that make exploration feel natural and adventure-like. You get the power bracelets from a different island, which now lets you access locations blocked by large statues. I love the mixing of these items throughout the map. I can't help but stop at every island to see what I can do. I even kept some notes to track some things. But for those who might find the traveling boring, as generally sailing is, I mean, there's a couple of puzzles like the boat rupee challenge, fighting enemies, and lifting chests, but for the most part you tend to ignore these unless you absolutely need it, like the rupee chests. There's a fast travel system you get about 40% of the way through the main story. It's a song that allows you to travel to different squares spread around the map, so exploration is sped up tremendously by this and still keeps intact that sense of exploration. My favorite open world encounter were the squids that pop out at certain regions. I think there's a total of 6 and I believe I got them all. One of them, after being defeated, pops out a fairy that doubles your magic. The rest gives you tons of rupees. You can tackle them in many ways too, like bombing the eyes, shooting arrows in the eyes, and my preferred way, using the boomerang. It's these encounters in this open world that lives in my mind the most for Wind Waker. It's the highlight of the game alongside some story moments, especially with Ganondorf. In my video on Majora's Mask, a lot of people mentioned how I missed out on crucial parts of Majora by not completing side quests. I do have plans to return to that game in the future and do a proper playthrough with all side quests, but I decided to tackle more side quest content here. I didn't get to all of them, as it's my personal way of playing. I don't like forcing myself to do something if I'm not enjoying doing it, because I don't think games are a checkbox simulator. You play it to play what you want. I know someone who only plays ARAM in League of Legends when Summoner's Rift is right there with a ripe community ready to tear them apart. Are they doing the right thing? Some would say yes. I say you are weak and you need to step on the rift to become a real man. But it's their preferred way of playing, so I can't complain. Anyways, the side quests consist of a lot of fetch quests, like the skull necklace, the joy pendants, which by the way, did you know that these attract butterflies to nectar-filled blossoms? I'm glad I got that mini cutscene every time I opened a chest with one of these in there, and it seems like they're the only collectible that can spawn in chests. Why? I don't know, but my god is it annoying to see. Wait, I actually do know. It's because it's related to the Triforce chart quests. Anyways, the skull necklace quest rewards you with a treasure chart if you can bring 20 to Maggie's father, an NPC in Windfall. PSA, Maggie's father is a cunt. You can also get knight's belts to give to one of the trainers on Outside Island. In exchange for 10, he gives you the hurricane spin. This, in my opinion, is the best upgrade and the best fetch quest related item you can get. Another interesting quest is the trading quest. There's a merchant in Windfall Island that sold you the sail in the beginning of the game, who then needs help with his inventory. He wants specific rare items, and to retrieve these you need to consult with these merchants that roam the land. They're wearing face-canceling hats, so I can't really tell what creature they are. If only there was a way. Do 3 sequences and the merchant is happy. He adds more stalls to his shop, and I love the real-time change that comes to Windfall. There's also this quest at night where a girl tries to rob his safe. I tried catching her a couple of times, though she would just reset. I planned on returning to it, but forgot to before I beat the game. You can also chase a couple of kids around playing hide and seek to show them the value of education. There are some fathers on the island who had their daughters abducted, and you can help them by saving the daughters alongside your sister. Maggie's father is one of them. Tetra ends up doing this for you, and you get no reward. One of the guys, Maggie's father, becomes a snobbish, self-indulgent rich guy. They sold the skull necklaces and bought the biggest house in town. And the source of their wealth, how they got the skull necklaces in the first place? The daughter was getting it on with a moblin. This guy. My favorite quest is the Picto quests. You can find an old pictograph on the island and consult the Picto merchant. He's astounded to see another enthusiast and begs you to become his apprentice. But before that, you need to prove to him your skill. You must take pictures of some people on the island whose description is given by the merchant. This involves a man sending a love letter, two people who are in love but can't be together and are stealing glances from each other, and a man who's easily startled. I really enjoyed this quest because it has you interact and study the NPCs. It also gives so much character and personality to the folks here. There were some quests I missed, like the Nintendo Gallery and the Night Auction. Well, there's always next time, I suppose. I also didn't have a Game Boy Advance to set up the Tingle quests, so I missed them too. Wind Waker has many side quests, and from the ones I did, they seem to be short and compact. It really feels like the focus went on the open world exploration, as a lot of them have you go out to the world to complete them. It feels like a vehicle to funnel the player out to the world and interact with it. My grand conclusion of Wind Waker's open world is that it was Nintendo's prototype to Breath of the Wild. I've never played Breath of the Wild, and I'm pretty sure Nintendo didn't have it in their plans back in 2002. But you can't help but see the inspiration and blueprint here in Wind Waker. From the Deku Leaf being equivalent to the gliders I see in gameplay for Breath of the Wild, the way you can pick up enemy weapons and utilize them, and the grand open world itself. One of my friends recently played Breath of the Wild and was telling me how the main draw of that game isn't the story or dungeons, but rather the open world experience itself. They mentioned that you could potentially go to the final boss right from the beginning, but most players explore first. Probably because they need the levels and strength, but also because that's the main gameplay loop there. I'll eventually play Breath of the Wild and find out how true that statement is, but I couldn't help but think about it during Wind Waker. It really does feel like the open world is what Nintendo wanted you to play Wind Waker for. Not the dungeons, not the bosses, but the sense of adventure and grand exploration. Did they achieve that? Yes, I think so. When I think of my time playing Wind Waker, I think of sailing around, jumping on an island, seeing if I'm able to do it, figuring out the best path to get most out of my Triforce map, marking a spot and coming back later. This is what I think of when I reminisce about Wind Waker. Does it scream perfection to me? Not really. Do I rate it above Majora's Mask or Ocarina of Time? No, I don't think so. I see it as an attempt at something new, and that's pretty much all. It was an attempt at a new style of Zelda game that was just okay. It was fine. It was a pleasant experience. Wind Waker gets 2 thumbs up from me, but fails to deliver a genre-defining experience like Ocarina of Time, or a heart-wrenching, gut-punching, thought-provoking story and theme like Majora's Mask. One of the comments under my Ocarina of Time video mentioned how I don't have the rose-colored nostalgia glasses on when I play these games, because I never played them before June in 2025. So sometimes I feel like I can be harsh on them. I see so many people mention how they love Wind Waker and how defining it was for them, but this was my honest-to-God viewing of the game. Feel free to tear me a new one in the comments if you feel like it. If you made it here, thanks for watching. Well, here goes the unscripted part of the end of my video. Once again, thanks for watching. I'm glad you made it to the end. I really enjoyed putting these videos together, and this one is also a new style, where in Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, I kind of just went through as a sort of perspective review of me going through the story, recounting the dungeons, my thoughts at each specific point. In this one, I decided to rewrite the script at the end and just, put them all together, talk about the story in one fell go, talk about the dungeons and combat in one go, and then talk about anything I wanted to talk about, I felt like I wanted to comment on. So let me know if you enjoyed it. I decided to take a break from, one game break, I should say, from Zelda, because I don't want to get burnt out from Zelda. Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and Wind Waker, they all had very similar feelings to them. They had very similar combat systems. They were just similar at their very core. So before I play Twilight Princess, I really want to give myself a little bit of a breather before I dive into that one. And the game I chose is one of my favorites. It's Lies of P. It's a Souls-like that came out in 2023 and recently got a DLC. So I want to kind of replay the game, revisit it, see what I think, see what it feels like on a second playthrough, and play the DLC, of course. So I'll be making a video on that. What exactly I'm going to be talking about it, I don't know. I think it'll come to me throughout the game. But yeah, be on the lookout for that one. Thanks, guys. See you.